So we're on Daf Samach Vav, 5 lines down from the top, Utsricha. Abaye, in a number of different cases and scenarios, has told us that if the Eid Echad is made and then there was Shtika, then we rely on the testimony and the Nemonis of the Eid Echad. So the Gemara wants to know why Abaye had to tell us all these different cases. And we'll see the cases as we go through the Sugyan side. Diyashmina hach kamais, if we only had the first case, and we knew that the din is that if the Eid Echad testifies that you ate chelev, b'shogeg, and therefore you have to bring a korban chatos, and this person was shosek, then we would have said that there's proof from his shtika that he conceded that he was guilty of this crime, b'shogeg, because he loved the kimli benafshe the ovid, if not for the fact that he realizes that he was guilty of eating chelev, is chulin bazor lavi maise. Why is he bringing a korban chatas? It would be chulin lazara. So we have to say that there's an integration here of the nemonis of the Eid Echad with the hodah or the shtika of the person, and that's why he's chayiv korban aval. But in the second case of Abaye, nitmu tarosecha, where the aid testifies that his taros contracted tumah, is meimar amrina and haydish shasik the savar chazili b'mei tumaso. No big deal. Okay, so what's in the worst case scenario? These macholim are tmeim. Okay, so I'll eat it when I'm tamei. No problem. Nothing's lost. So we're not sure that his shtika in this case is really a genuine hodah, because he doesn't stand to lose much by being modeh. So maybe he's not serious about the hodah. V'yash minin ha, and if we only had the chiddush of Abaye in the second case of taros, mishum deko mafsid levi mei tarasa, we believe him through his shtika and interpret it as a hodah, because otherwise, during his days of Tara, he won't be able to eat these macholos. Aval shoro nirva, but in the third case of Abaye, where the testimony on the part of the one aid was that Yoshar was a nirva, and therefore it's possible a korban, is meimar amar kol hashvarim lav gabi mizbeach kamaisi. What is it? Every shar that I own is going to be brought on the mizbeach? Okay, so this shar won't be brought on the mizbeach. So he says nothing. But his shtika silence is not indicative of any sort of admission. Tzricha, and therefore we need all of Abaye's cases. Ibaylahu. Ishto zinsa b'eid echad v'shosek mau. An aid, one single aid, comes forward to testify, and he says to him, your wife was guilty of znus, I saw it. What's the din when this person, the husband, is shosek? Shall we assume that his shtika indicates that he accepted the testimony of the one single aid, and therefore he has to divorce his wife? Amar Abaye, Neman, for Rav Amar Eno Neman. Abaye says, and it's very consistent with Abaye's mahalach, that we rely on this aid and we trust in aid as long as the baldover is not makashim. And Rav says no. Why? The din that if a woman had znus and therefore she can no longer resume her relation with her husband, that's a davar sheberva. And with regard to davar sheberva, the Torah trusts two witnesses, and nothing less than two witnesses will do. Amar Abaye minoa aminola. So now Abaye is going to prove his shita that we rely on the Eid Echad, and the husband through his shtika will have to divorce his wife. And then we're going to follow up with Rav, and Rav is also going to prove and establish his shita. Mina minoleda hu samya. There was a blind person, Davi Masader Masnisa Masniasa Kami Demar Shmuel. He had a certain zman, a certain kvius, in which he would recite his Mishnayos Baal Peh in the presence of Shmuel. Yom Echad, Negale, he was late, V'lo avikas, he didn't show up in front of Shmuel. Ishadar Shlicha Basrei. Shmuel sent a shliach to find out what's going on. How come he's not showing up? Ada Azul Shlicha Bechada Urcha Osa Iu Bechada. The shliach went through one road, and the blind person came in front of Shmuel through a different road. They didn't see each other. V'chi Osa Shliach, when the shliach finally got back to Shmuel and he confronted the Iver, he said to the blind person, Amar Lo, he said to him, Ishtecha Zinsa, I saw your wife having an extramarital relationship, and therefore you're not allowed to live with her. Asal Kami Demar Shmuel. So the blind person comes in front of Shmuel, he says, do I have to divorce my wife? Amalei, Shmuel responds, it all depends on you. If you trust this guy, Zil Afka, go give her a get. Because if you're not makish the aid, then the aidus of the Eid Echad is Nemon. The Ilolo topic. But if you don't believe the Shliach, if he's not Nemon Alecha, then you don't have to divorce your wife. Says Abaye, what did Shmuel have in mind? My love, shouldn't we certainly assume that Imeheman Alecha, to lav gazlanahu. What Shmuel meant to say to this blind person was that if, as far as you know, he is not a gazlan and there's no reason to disqualify his edus, then rely on his edus. And clearly, says Abaye, we see from this that in a place where we don't contradict the aid, we rely on the aid, even though he's only one. For Rava, but Rava will counter argument against Abaye and reinterpret the words of Shmuel, that what Shmuel was saying to the Iver was, if it's clear to you that this person is not lying, and it's just, in your eyes, it's just like two witnesses, Zil Afka divorce of Vilo, but if he's not Neman Beinecha, he's like any Eid Echad, he's in Lo Tafka. You don't have any responsibility to divorce your wife because it's a davar shebe'erva, and ain't davar shebe'erva pachs mishnayim. We don't rely on the testimony of one aid. Abaye now continues and says, I have to find another proof. Rava dispelled my proof. This Sanya we learned in a Brisa, and keep in mind, now we're going to have to talk about a davar shebe'erva, and Abaye is going to have to prove that even in a davar shebe'erva, Eid Echad is believed as long as there's no akasha, no one is denying the testimony of the Eid Echad. Ma'aseh b'Yanai HaMelech, there's a terribly catastrophic story about Yanai HaMelech. Sheholach Kochalis. He fought a battle in a country, against a country called Kochalis, Sheba Midbar, which was located in the wilderness. And V'kibei Sham Shishim Krachim. He was very, very successful, and he conquered 60 cities, large urban centers. Ubechazarasa Haya Sameach Simcha Gedol. Yanai was very elated at the tremendous wealth that he conquered 60 cities. V'kar l'chol chachmi Yisrael v'amalem abuseinu. Our forefathers were poor, and they ate a yerek, which is called maluchim. Bisman shayu oskim b'binyan beis hamigdash. Again, we're not talking about the migdash of Shlomo Melech the first. There was plenty of wealth, but at the time of the second migdash, there was poverty, and all they could eat as they're building the second migdash is some sort of green vegetable. Even though we're very wealthy, we just conquered 60 cities, we're going to make a zecher lavosenu, and we're going to eat maluchim. Vehelu maluchim al shulchano shel zahav. Imagine, it's almost a tarti de sasra. They put these greeneries on top of a golden table. They were so rich. But Yanai HaMelech wanted us to remember poverty. V'yochel. Hoysham echad echad ish leitz levra ublial. three different negative descriptions of this individual, Velazar ben Poira Shmo. He's the one who's going to instigate trouble against the Chachamim in front of Yanei Amel. Vayomer Elazar ben Poira, Yanei Amel. Yanei Amel, libam shel prushim alecha. The Talmidei Chachamim, which are the prushim against the tzdokim, they hate you. They're not happy with your success. Yanei says, Ma'esa, meaning, how do I know such a thing? Says Elazar Yimach Shemo, Hakem lahem b'tzitz shebeinenecha. He encourages Yanei Amel to test the Chachamim. And he tells Yanei Amel to wear the tzitz of the Kohen Gadol and see the response of the Chacham. Because Yanei Amel came from the Zera Kahuna. And Yanei took him up on this piece of advice. Hikim lahem b'tzitz shebeinena. He wore the tzitz. V'hoisham zaken echad. One of the Chachamim was there at the time. Yehuda ben Gedidya Shmo. Vayomer Yehuda ben Gedidya Yanei Amel, Yanei Amel, Rav Lecha, Kesem Malchus. Isn't it enough for you that you're wearing the crown of kingship? Hanach Keser Kuna l'Zara shel Aaron. You don't really belong to the Zara shel Aaron. You're not kosher l'Kuhuna. Why are you wearing the tzitz? And now the Gemara explains why this Chacham, this Zaken, accused Yanai of not being qualified to be the Kohen Gadol. Shahayu Omrim, because the Prushim used to say, Imo Nishbes, the mother of Yanai was taken captive. B'Modian, in a place called Modian. And a shvuya, a woman who was taken captive, is psula l'kohen. She's not allowed to marry Kohen because we assume that a guy had a relationship with her. And therefore, the mother of Yanei Amelech had no legal rights, according to the Torah, to be married to Yanai, because a Kohen is not allowed to marry a shvuya. So the Chachamim, based apparently on this one particular Chacham named Yehuda, rallied around him and objected to the fact that Yanai took upon himself the Kahuna Gedola and wore the tzitz. Because they bought into the theory that Yanai Amelech's mother was a shvuya, she's psul Kohen, and therefore Yanai, the child of that marriage, is a chalal. And he points out here, based on a Gemara in Brachos, that Yanai Melech was already Meshamish B'Kula Gedol, even before this terrible Maisa that happened. Now, you're not allowed to wear the tzitz outside of the Beis HaMikdash. So at this point, the Chachamim saw that he was Mizalzel, Yanai Amelech was Mizalzel in the Isuri D'Rabbanan by wearing the tzitz outside of the Mikdash. And that's why they attacked him. They suspected that he was a tzdoki. And he rejected the Chachamim. So again, it's possible that they didn't have ample proof. The Chacham did not have proof positive that the mother of Yanei HaMelech was indeed a Shvuya. So they couldn't prove it. But it's very possible that they were upset with Yanei HaMelech for wearing the tzitz outside the Beis HaMikdash. Vayibadlu Chachmei Yisrael B'zam. And the people, the Chachamim of Israel, separated themselves from Yanai, and that's going to incur the Zam, the anger of Yanai. Vayomer Elazar ben Poira Yanai HaMelech. Yanai HaMelech had Yotcha B'Yisrael Kachu Dino V'Atov Melech V'Kohen Gadol Kachu Dincha. If a person is mavaza a hedjot, calls him a mamzer, whatever he does, then we punish him for that. And now you're a king. You're not just a regular rank and file citizen. You're also a Kohen Gadol. And kachu dincha, are you going to allow yourself to be humiliated by the chachamim? So Yanei HaMelech turns to this Yamach Shemonik by the name of Elazar ben Poria, and he says to him, so what should I do? Ma esa. And Elazar ben Poira says to him, Ata shomea le'atzasi romsen, destroy, murder the Chachamim. So naively, Yanei HaMelech says, V'Torah matei aleha. Those Chachamim are well-known scholars. If I destroy them, what's going to happen to the Torah? It's going to be lost. Says Elazar ben Poira, Rucha u'unachas bekevin zavis v'kol misha rotze lilmod yavav alit. Elazar ben Poria calms down Yanei HaMelech. You're worried about destroying the Chachamim? Don't worry about it. You know what? Torah is hefker. It's always munach v'keren zov. Somebody's going to come along and is going to find the Torah and discover the Torah and explain the Torah. Don't be worried about that. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, miyad nizru kabo apikursis. At this point, Elazar has gotten Yanai so angry that Yanai loses it and he says, you know what? I'm rejecting the Chachamim. I'm going to be at Stoki. I'm rejecting Torah Shebal Peh. He should have told Elazar ben Porira, Teinach, Torah Shebal Torah Shebal Peh, Mai. All right, you're telling me that some other scholar, after I destroy the scholars of Israel, will come forward and interpret the Torah Shebal. But who's going to interpret the Torah Shebal Peh? Who has the Mesorah? Miyad vatutats hara al yidei Elazar b'piyu v'hargu kol chachmis. Immediately, when Yanei HaMelech became an apikoris, he now brought Ra, implementing the words of Elazar ben and the advice of Elazar ben Poira to destroy the Chachmei Yisrael. The entire world was desolate. There was no Torah. All the Torah was destroyed. Shimon ben Shetach. Shimon ben Shetach had protectia. He was the brother of Eishes Yanei HaMelech, and Hichziras HaTorah Liyoshin. And Shimon ben Shetach, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm missing the word in English, but it means he, on his own, just a one-man show. he was able to be machzir the Torah liyosh. So Abai asks the following. Let's talk about this laws that went out about the mother of Yana. Hechidon. If there were indeed two witnesses that testified that she was a shvuya, maybe the suffix was because there was a contradiction by two witnesses. Why you somech on the Edom HaMachshirim, Smocha Hani, those Edom that say he was Pasul Kahuna? So what did the Brisa mean when it says Lo Nimtza Damar, Lo Nimtza Raya Leposla? And we have two Edom that said that his mother was a Shvuya. That should be enough. And everybody asks the question, what do you mean if it's Trey against Trey? We say Uki Gavra Cheskaseh, and therefore Yana Yada Cheskes Kashrus. And the answer is because the Edom who say that the mother was a Shvuya, then from the moment that Yana Yamelch was born into the world, he was Pasul. She was a Shvuya. Hello, it can't be that there were two Edom. Then for sure it was Nimtza Dover. But there's only one aid that testified that the mother of Yana Yamelch was a Shvuya. V'taima to Kamakashi Le Beitre. Apparently, there were two witnesses that were makrish, the Eidecha, that testified that Yana Yamelch was a shvuya. Mother was a shvuya. Olav hachi meheman. If not for the fact that there were two Eidim to contradict the Eidecha, then the Eidecha would be believed. And this is a great kasha on Rava because Rava says that ein davar shebe'erva pachos mishnayim, and to passel someone from marrying a Kohen or from being a Kohen, that is a davar shebe'erva. The Rava, how will Rava contend against the Raya of Abaye? Liolam kidomer Rava Acha, Trey kidomer Rava Acha, Bar Rav min Yomi, the Eidei Azam. Yes, there were two sets of witnesses. But the second set said Imanu Ayisem to the first set, but was never Makish the Maisa. And in this case, the Torah is going to believe the second set of Eidim, and the first set of Eidim is Batel because of Hazama. So you're right, there was Eidos that the mother was a Shvuya, but there was Hazama against that Eidos. So therefore we mevatel the first Eidim, and therefore we assume that the mother of Yana Yamelch was not a Shvuya. So the Brisa says they didn't have a proof to passel Yanai as the son of a Shvuya who was married to a Kohen because there was Hazam against those eight. Ibai him another answer. Kid Rabbi Yitzchak, Tiyomar Rabbi Yitzchak. There was no akosha, but rather the second pair of Eidim added something to the testimony of the first pair of Eidim. V'shivcha hichnisu tachtera. In other words, the second pair of Eidim testified that while it's true, as the first pair of Eidim said that the mother of Yanai was taken as a shvuya, however, before the Goyim got a hold of her in a private way, the Jews gathered together and they absconded with the mother of Yanai before that she would be defiled. and they gave a shivcha knainis in her place as a substitute. So the goyim, the mashpaim, were fooled. How is this a proof for Rava? It's really not a proof for Rava. All Rav has accomplished at this point is that he rejected the proof of Abaye. Now Rav is going to come along on Rava, and he's going to establish a proof that Eid Echad is not believed in a Davar Sheberev, even with the Shtika.